This program is made possible by New York State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Arlene Gonzalez-Sanchez from the New York State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services, and I'd like to welcome you today to our program, Nueva Esperanza, Nueva Vida with OASAS. Today we have a great informative program. We're going to talk about the myths and the realities and the truth around addiction. We're going to touch things like the truth behind medication-assisted treatment, especially when it comes to women who are pregnant. We're also going to talk about the new regulations and policies that we have put into place under the leadership of Governor Cuomo to ensure that people have access to medication-assisted treatment and the right level of care that they need. So stay tuned. This is a very informative program, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful to you. And to talk to us a little bit more about the myths and the realities and the truth around addiction, I'm here today with two great people from our staff at OASAS, Mr. Rob Kent, General Counsel for OASAS, and Stephanie Campbell, the Director of the newly created Office of the Ombudsman Office created by Governor Cuomo. Thank you so much for being here and for helping us get the right information to the people of New York State. And thank you for the great work that you do on a day-to-day basis. Welcome to Nueva Esperanza, Nueva Vida with OASAS.
Thank you.
So Rob, I want to start with you. You know, we've done a great deal of work in the state, you know, with respect to policies and regulations. So talk to me briefly, because I know you won't be able to talk about all the regulations, but touch on some of the regulations that are really important in terms of access to medication, access to treatment, and maybe talk a little bit about insurance coverage if you can.
Certainly. So over the last 5 years in response to the opioid epidemic, we've basically made immediate access to treatment in New York State and OASAS programs possible. So many insurers prior to that would make people fail first at an outpatient program before they could go to a vetted treatment program. That is not permitted in New York anymore. Also, they would guard the front door or make you get prior approval to go to a treatment program. That's no longer the case in New York. We've changed those rules. And the governor's proposed in this year's budget to try to eliminate the last piece, which is they still prior approve access to addiction medications like buprenorphine and methadone and Vivitrol. We want to eliminate that as well. And then ultimately, every form of treatment in New York State would be immediately available based on your need.
This program is about myths. So one of the greatest myths we have is that there's no treatment here in New York State. We know that's a big myth. And so talk to me about what the state has done to avoid people being sent abroad or out of the state to get treatment, because we all know what happens. They come back worse than what they left. And often they're being preyed upon by, unscrupulous people that don't care. So talk to me about what we're doing here in the state to avoid that.
So in addition to all the expansion of treatment that we've done over the last 5 years, we also set up a number of years ago a tool. It's on our public website. It's called Find Addiction Treatment. And you literally can go to that tool. You can punch in your location, and it'll tell you all of the available treatment within any range of time and hours with it, nearby you. But it is a great myth. There is treatment available every day. As you know, we check it regularly ourselves. Our providers report every day to that tool what they have available. There are hundreds of beds and hundreds of other opportunities available every single day. And it's really important that people use that tool. It's on our website. It's easy to use. It'll explain the different kinds of treatment, how to connect with those providers. And as you know, we push that really hard because we know in New York our programs they're overseen by us. They're high quality programs. We know nothing about programs run out of state. And in fact, as you know, we get a lot of horror stories from families who've gone out of state for treatment. So the most easiest thing is we've put it out there. You can find out where it's available every day, and it is.
So we know that there's a law that was passed, a regulation that was passed to prevent people from being preyed upon and being solicited by unscrupulous people, telling them that their loved ones could go abroad or out of the state and get treatment. Talk to me about the law.
Yes, so we passed last year, and the governor signed it into law, the patient brokering law. And effectively what it says is no treatment provider or person, either within the state or outside the state, can be paid for referring somebody to any particular program. It's now illegal. It's a crime in New York State. And we did that because of the stories we were hearing. People working in New York State and sending people to a program based on how much that program would pay them to make the referral. And, you know, it's now illegal in New York State. Actually, the federal government's followed our lead now, and they've made it illegal federally. But we were sort of leading that charge. And again, because we know good treatment's available in New York, and you should be referred based on the quality of the program and what you need, and not because that person's being paid a fee.
So along those lines is a great segue. You know, the governor also created a new office, of which you're the director, the Ombudsman Office, to deal with cases of people who have problems accessing treatment. Mm-hmm. And it could be something like an insurance company may not want to pay, or they say they're not paying, so on and so forth. Talk to me a little bit about the office, and talk to me about what you have, the type of things that you have intervened in thus far.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Commissioner, for all that you've done, and the governor. You know, as you know, this office was created as the result of a number of partnerships between advocates who understood family members and folks with addiction who were seeing that they were having difficulty accessing insurance benefits. And, you know, and New York is really leading the way, you know, to sort of tap into what Rob just said in terms of leading the way nationally in terms of parity here in New York State. So the new laws that have been passed have really done a lot. But what we found is that there were still issues that people were having in terms of accessing treatment. And so this office was created, got off the ground in October. I was brought on board, and we now have essentially a partnership in collaboration with the Office of Mental Health, in which we're helping folks access their insurance benefits for both substance use and mental health issues with regards to treatment. And we've had to date over 300 cases in which people have been able to contact the CHAMP. CHAMP is the acronym that we're using for the Ombudsman Program, which stands for Community Health Access to Addiction and Mental Health Care Project. And it really is, you know, helping folks to navigate, you know what their insurance rights are, know how to access those benefits if they're seeing barriers to that. We've helped people who have, you know, had issues with, you know, getting medication-assisted treatment as it pertains to their formularies on their insurance, as well as getting into care. And we've been doing that from Buffalo down to you know, down to Long Island. We've had cases all around the state.
Great. So specifically, let's talk about a particular case that you got and how it was brought to your attention and the resolution.
Okay. So we also have community-based organizations around the state who are connecting with us, and I had an advocate out in the western part of the state who contacted me and said, you know, we have this young man who's on his mother's commercial insurance, and he needs access to treatment. You know, outpatient treatment several times a week. He doesn't have the money to pay for it, and he can't seem to access the insurance. And so we were able to work with the family and also our CSS folks who are manning the lines down in New York City to try to get him, transition him from the commercial insurance plan that he was on, which was, you know, just he didn't have the means in terms of the copay to afford that, to get him onto Medicaid, in which he could then be access his treatment and medication. And we're so thrilled that he was successfully able to do that, and is, as far as I know, engaged in treatment as we speak.
Great, that's fabulous. Thanks for that information. So obviously your office was like timely in such a short period of time to have served 300 people and resolve issues tells you that it was long due, that we needed. So thank you so much for that. Rob, now I'm going to speak to you a little bit more. What else do you think, you know, person seeing the show should know? Is there anything else that you want to advise them in terms of whether it's accessing services, what their rights are, whatever?
Yeah, so what I would say, and this has been one of the issues that's come up, and especially with the opioid epidemic, every one of our programs has to make medication available to you immediately. And we know we've had instances where some providers didn't believe that was their obligation. We've been pursuing new regulations that reaffirm that we're treating a chronic disease. You got to meet people where they're at. So every one of our treatment programs has to make available what you need, including medication. If they don't provide it directly themselves, they have a relationship to make that available. And then use these resources that we have. Call the CHAMP hotline. You can always reach out to us. You can get treatment in this state, any place in this state, any day, any time, any hour. So please take advantage of all the resources that we've created.
So I just wanted the audience to know that, you know, there's a lot of new programming that's taking place. One of the more unique ones that we're very interested in is being able to start an induction medication-assisted treatment at the ED, and I think it's important that the general population understand and know that, because that's going to be huge. Stephanie, any last-minute thoughts on anything else you think the people watching the show should know? What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to second what Rob says and what you said as well, and the work that you've done in terms of making sure that folks across the board, you know, across the state have access to treatment, and know that, you know, we have options available to them in both English and Spanish. If folks, we've been helping folks that, you know, have issues in terms of documentation. We also are helping folks get into treatment who have, you know, prior to recently been, you know, had difficulty accessing treatment. And so I think that it's really important for folks to know that, you know, there's a wonderful ad out now that, you know, you are here and addiction treatment is here, and 24/7, you know, there's opportunities in which, you know, folks have access to the medication to help them, you know, build and sustain their recovery, that there's, that we truly are reversing the stigma around seeing addiction treated as a chronic illness, and that there's ongoing recovery support services available.
So I really want to thank both of you for being with us, for helping us have this dialogue around myths and reality. And once again, thank you so much for the great work that both of you do. I couldn't do this on my own if I didn't have people like you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, stay tuned for more of Nueva Esperanza, Nueva Vida with OASAS.
I used to think addiction was someone else's problem.
I used to think that people should just stop using.
I didn't understand addiction was a disease.
People are dying all over, even in this community.
New York State is leading the fight against addiction.
And there are counseling treatment programs.
And medications that can help right here.
To learn more, visit combataddiction.ny.gov.
We can't lose anyone else.
I thought I was alone. I was afraid to talk about my addiction or to tell others that I needed help. But I didn't need to be. Support was all around me. My friends, family, support professionals, my faith. Today I am sober. And what I know now is that treatment is available. Recovery, possible. You do not have to be alone in your addiction.
Here with Dr. Morgan, who is the former medical director of the State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse, a great colleague and friend of mine who I respect tremendously. And we're here to talk with Dr. Morgan around some of the myths that exist with respect to the illness of addiction. Thank you for being here, Dr. Morgan.
Thank you for having me, Commissioner.
So to start, if you could give me a little background of your work as the medical director and also the specialist in addiction. Share with us some of your experiences.
Well, working for you, Commissioner, and for the state of New York as the medical director was the pinnacle of my career, really. I still see patients, and I'm very grateful to be able to do that. But being a part of what New York State has accomplished, leading the nation in addiction, is the culmination of my 40-year career in addiction, well, 37 years in addiction medicine. So I've been at this a long time. And I can speak from the point of view of a professional and also as a person in long-term recovery myself. I've been in long-term recovery for 37 years, which means I haven't had a drink or a drug for that length of time, and all of that makes all of this possible. So I'm speaking about that honor and privilege from both the point of view as a recovering person and the point of view as your medical director, Commissioner.
So talk to me a little bit about the notion that, you know, addiction is an illness, and as such, it should be treated as a chronic illness.
Well, the reason we can talk about that is because it is an illness, and it's been defined that way for many, many years by the American Medical Association, by the American Society of Addiction Medicine, and it is an illness of the brain. And so, whereas coronary artery disease is an illness of the heart, this illness actually is in the brain, and it's in the part of the brain that actually controls our instincts. It's in the midbrain, but it affects the entire brain itself. And so when we treat the addiction as an illness, what happens is we get responses like we would get when we treat heart disease or high blood pressure. People respond and actually get better. And we know exactly, most of the time, what to do after we make diagnoses. And so treating it as an illness is the only thing that really makes sense.
Right. So now talk to me a little bit more specifically about a particular myth that exists with respect to pregnant women who are addicted. The myth, which is a terrible myth, indicates that women that are addicted should not be treated with medication-assisted treatment because it will impact the fetus. And we all know that that's totally contrary. So talk to me a little bit more about that, doctor.
Well, what impacts the fetus adversely is when the person's addiction is not treated. When she goes out and continues to have to use intoxicants, which may or may not contain even what she thinks they contain. They could contain poisons and things like that. She can't eat normally. She can't take care of herself normally. She can't follow up with prenatal care, with her obstetrician, and other things that are very important to a person who is pregnant. So not treating her with medication, the medications that we use, for instance, for opioid use disorder, all of them stop the use of opioids. They provide the person who is pregnant with a way to not have to, they stop it almost immediately. Buprenorphine and methadone can be started right away, and they stop the use of the intoxicants, the opioids, fentanyl, heroin, all those things, so that then she can actually go to her prenatal appointments, she can participate in care, she can eat properly, whereas when she's in active addiction, she doesn't even have an appetite and can't even keep food down. So the medications also are not new. We have had methadone since the 1960s, and Niswander and Dole at Rockefeller and Mary Jean Creek at Rockefeller University used it first. We've had buprenorphine in existence. It was synthesized in the late 70s. We've had naltrexone, which we don't normally use for pregnant people, the last one. But the first two, they're not new medications. They're tried and true. With methadone, we have data that extend way out to when those kids are now in their 60s. The kids who were born to the mothers who were pregnant when they were treated with methadone. And there's nothing that is different about those individuals who were the children and now in their 60s than somebody who wasn't born, who was born to a mother who wasn't addicted to anything. So we have those data. The medications help people to stay in treatment so that they're able to complete counseling. If they want to go to mutual support groups, they can do all of those things. They can connect with wraparound services, which are so very, very important for many of our patients. And the dignity of the woman is restored to her even before she delivers. So there are so many reasons to use the medications, and there just aren't a lot of reasons that I can think of to not use them.
So actually the myth is really a terrible myth, because the medicine, the earlier the woman starts on the regimen of medication, the better it is for herself and the fetus. The baby will then not be born addicted to the drugs. So thank you so much, Dr.
Yes, and one thing to add is that the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the American Society of Addiction Medicine, the American Pediatric, all of us agree, all of the doctors agree that it's the right thing to do.
So now let's talk about another myth, which is that there are people that believe that recovery is not possible, that once you're an addict, you're always going to be an addict, and stability is just not part of your way of life. And we know that that's not true. That is a terrible myth, because there are over 25 million people currently in recovery. So give me your thoughts on that, especially being involved in treating so many people who are addicted.
Well, you're looking at one of them right now, who is sober for the long haul, and my life is completely different as a result of having been treated by people who loved me and cared about me. In 1981 is when I went, and this is what I've been able to do since then. And now my mother lives with me, and I'm able to give back to my family and my community. But let me get on with a more scientific thing as well, and experiential thing. I have been involved in treating tens of thousands of people with all different modalities of treatment and with all different types of substances that have been used, and I watch countless miracles every single day. And some of the miracles are that my patients show up for their treatment, and some of them are that people go on with long-term sustained recovery. I think one of the reasons that we haven't known about that before is that people have not felt free to disclose about their recovery. And so we haven't known that maybe we live right next door, maybe we work right next to, stand by somebody who's been in recovery because of the stigma that's been associated with it. And Commissioner, under your leadership, OASAS actually produced a film called Reversing the Stigma, which addresses some of those issues right there. But I think people are afraid of what they don't know. And so for those of us who are in recovery, more of us have come out and talked about it so that people can realize we're not somebody to be afraid of, and so that people can see us. I also have hypertension. I just want to mention that. And I don't think by looking at me you can tell that I have hypertension or that I have addiction. And both are the same thing. If I take my antihypertensive medications, which I do every single day, my blood pressure is down about 120/80, which is normal. If I continue to do my recovery program, which for me involves mutual support meetings, sponsorship, and a few other things, that similar to what I did when I got out of treatment, I haven't changed that much about it. My addiction stays in check as well. So if I treat both of my illnesses that I have, hypertension and addiction, as chronic diseases, and continue to do the right things to take care of both of them, I don't suffer with the adversity that could be caused by active hypertension or active addiction. So that's what I see in my treatment of people, and I know that's what you see as you travel around the state as well. Millions of people who are in recovery.
So I want to thank you, Dr. Morgan, for being with us here today, for clearing up some of the myths that exist, and thank you for the great work that you do and that you continue to do. Thank you.
My pleasure, Commissioner, and thank you for everything you're doing to lead the state of New York. I appreciate it from my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to thank Dr. Morgan again, and please stay tuned.
Regular folks, just like us.
Our friends, neighbors,
Even our families.
Can get addicted to opioids. New York State is leading the fight against addiction.
Providing help regardless of a person's ability to pay.
Help is available in your community.
And in ours.
To learn more, visit combataddiction.ny.gov.
We can't lose anyone else.
I thought I was alone. I was afraid to talk about my addiction or to tell others that I needed help. But I didn't need to be. Support was all around me. My friends, family, support professionals, my faith. Today I am sober. And what I know now is that treatment is available. Recovery, possible. You do not have to be alone in your addiction.
So I hope you agree that today's program was really excellent. We spoke about, clarified a lot of the myths that there are in our system of care. For me, it's extremely important as the commissioner that everyone knows the truth behind addiction. Addiction is a disease, recovery is possible, and we are doing everything possible in the state of New York to ensure that the people who are addicted have the level of care and have access to the services that they need. So thank you for being with us, and I hope this was very helpful to you.
This program is made possible by New York State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services.